It's quite ritualistic, Ash. Do you not
Ritual.
think it? Because like just before it all happened, you had the George Floyd thing, and he said I can't breathe. He was like a famous quote, "I can't breathe," and then you had the mask thing coming in, and
Yeah,
then before that you had a Eurovision Song Contest where Madonna did a ritualistic kind of performance as well, where you had people in masks, gas
yeah,
masks, and they were collapsing and things like that.
yeah,
So
yeah. They're always
it
telling
for
us
yeah, for me it
predictive
was
programming and stuff, isn't it? Like
but
the
again,
Olympics.
dark stuff.
Yeah, 2012 Olympics as well, isn't it? The whole opening ceremony in London was really.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you look at it now, it's like with your open eyes and an open heart,
Mm.
you can see there's much more to this than
Yeah.
than meets the eye. Okay, welcome to the Stellify podcast. Today, I'm very, very grateful to have my good friend Ash Mahmood with me, who is an award-winning filmmaker and a science teacher. I mean, I say good friend, but I've only met you the once, and that was at your the premiere of the film you did with Jackie Devoy playing God, which is such an important film, and and I'm very honoured that I was invited by Jackie, and very grateful that I got to meet you because I instantly felt a warmth with you, Ash. It's like sometimes I think you can. We were talking off camera a little bit just now about energy,
Mm.
and I felt a very wonderful, calm energy with you, and very safe. And sometimes you can have that with individuals, but then you can feel a different energy. You can walk into a room like you know, and feel a completely different energy, can't you?
Yeah.
And that's amazing in itself. I don't think we appreciate actually how incredible we are. We think that our minds are just that, but there's a field of energy there with intelligence that we wonderful.
It
So
is. You're right. Thank you very much,
thanks.
first of all, yeah, for having me, and I'm really honoured. And as I said, yeah, I feel like we've known each other for a long time, kindred spirits. Yeah, the energy was just right. I felt really comfortable in your energy as well. Could feel your energy field hitting me, and it was amazing. It was really great to meet you. You're a gentle soul. You're a beautiful soul, and we've talked quite a lot, isn't it? Shared a lot of posts and followed each other.
Absolutely.
So really grateful for you coming all the way to London from far. I think up in Preston, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. But I was honoured, and I've mentioned it on because I had a Jackie on the podcast, and if anybody, watches this and hasn't seen the Jackie Devoy podcast, please watch that as well. But I will put in the description again the link to the film because it's such an important film. How did that get started for you, Ash? I mean, did you know Jackie before? How did the process work?
Yeah, so I caught some of Jackie's comments on Twitter
Hmm.
the very early days, and I thought, wow, she's one of the very few journalists at the time who was really challenging all of the narrative that we had in 2020 onwards, everything, every part of it. So that was so rare. But then she got taken off basically. So pretty soon she was no longer to be found on Twitter because she was banned very early on. I remember. I'm
Hmm.
trying to remember how we. I was obviously quite impressed by her, so I did
Yes.
pursue to try to find her, and I managed to find her on Valentine's Day. I did an interview there in 2021, and somehow, yeah, our paths managed to cross. I think it was because I was interviewing some people for my channel, which is called Planet Uplift, which is just basically putting out. It's like a national social archive, just putting
Okay.
out the truth for those people who perhaps suffered as a result of the COVID narrative, or who challenged it and were willing to speak out, but sometimes were not given a voice
Hmm.
because the mainstream was just censoring all of these people. So I interviewed a couple of people who approached me, and they suffered, well, their loved ones suffered death from the drugs midazolam
Hmm.
and morphine, the cocktail there. These two of those people had this, the loved one passed away. This was pre-COVID, actually, so this was not something that just
Yeah.
started in COVID, this was happening. So these people lost their loved ones in 2016, and I think it was about 2016, 2017. And remember, they said that the Liverpool care pathway ended many, many years prior to that period. So this was continuously going on. And one of these, I interviewed a third person, and she lost her loved one through this cocktail of lethal drugs in the COVID era. And these people had actually been interviewed for Jackie's first film, which I think is called A Good Death.
That's right.
And but these people were not featured, so it was very touching for me that I could speak to these people who unfortunately couldn't get into that film because there's just so many people who'd been interviewed, and there's a limited number of people that could be featured in that film. And somehow I found these people able to give them a voice, so their stories could be heard as well. And so then I joined a group that Jackie had set up, and in that group it was many, many people who had lost loved ones to this lethal cocktail. And that's one of the areas that she was pursuing, this lethal injections, basically, of midazolam and morphine. And so that's how we met, and we got talking and decided to work together on this film, Playing God. And so we decided to expand this project. So we thought we didn't just want to look at midazolam and morphine. We didn't just want to look at the lethal injections. We also wanted to look at some other areas as well where we felt that the state had basically created policies and protocols that were causing the death of lots of people for different reasons. So one of those things we looked at, we didn't just look at, it wasn't just older people, there were babies, there were children, there were so many different people, and given different drugs, some given multiple drugs and procedures that caused great harm and ultimately the death of these individuals. So it was really quite harrowing. So I knew a few people in who featured in the film, and Jackie knew a few people. So we got them together. We got a few experts in there as well. So we got a gentleman called Dr. Kevin Corbett, who experienced all of what we saw in the COVID. He experienced all of that with the HIV fast, really. And we also had a priest who was formerly a neurologist and a very strong critic of this midazolam and morphine protocol, end of life palliative care system in the NHS and the community. So we got all of these people together. We got a lawyer in there as well called Anna de Busseret, and a number of other people. And so this, I think, added weight to the film, just to have some so-called experts as well. But then you had the actual testimonies of the families who lost their loved ones. So we were just, I suppose I was just very blessed that these, or well, I shouldn't say blessed is maybe not the word I'm looking for, but I felt very touched and very moved that these people had sought me to tell their stories. This sort of thing had never happened. I've made films for many years, but people had actually come to find me to tell their stories. So I was very honored. I was very moved. It was very difficult because these people are still extremely traumatized. And so for them to come and approach me, to entrust me to tell their truth, I did feel actually blessed, because for this to happen, it's, there's got to be a huge amount of trust. Absolutely. And it's almost like the universe is sending me on this mission, this important mission to get the truth out, because some of these people had their truths covered up for the best part of 45 years. We're talking about one case from 1978, as you may recall, a young child. It was awful. This was the drug Epilim. And then you had a baby that was systematically experimented on. There's no other word for it. I say that it's very likely that this is manslaughter. And the worst thing about that case with this baby, I think if you recall, it was Elizabeth Dixon, the baby was, and the parents were Anne and Graham Dixon. And they thought that they were finally going to get the truth after almost 20 years of a cover-up. And they were basically used and they were tricked basically into and misled into believing that they were going to get the truth out through a report That was
Mm-hmm.
commissioned by Jeremy Hunt, who was the health secretary at the time, but actually it was another cover up again, all over again. So they were basically made to suffer just when they were, I mean, you can't ever say that they ever were recovering, but they were certainly in a better place and they had a bit of hope.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they were terribly let down and they had to relive their whole ordeal. And they felt really awful for having trusted people all over again who then let them down and lied. And these are people who are so-called eminent,
Mm-hmm.
members of society. You look at their Wikipedia page and they're praised as these most eminent and respectful people when they're actually just a bunch of satanic beings. Sort of, can't think of a
Yeah.
better phrase to describe them.
Yeah.
It's awful. It really is awful. And so, as I said, yeah, I just felt quite moved that, and I felt suddenly that it was very important that I set up this channel because there were voices out there that really wanted to tell their stories. For a while, people were just so many. I was inundated with calls, from so many people, and I was just doing this on the side, really on the weekends or whenever I could. And people lived far and afield, so you're traveling to Cornwall. Sometimes ended
Mm-hmm.
up in Scotland. I think you interviewed Alex Mitchell, who was based in Scotland. So
That's
my
right.
interviews are personal, so I have to actually go and physically meet them.
Yeah.
Bless his soul, he actually felt sorry for me. He said, "You're coming all the way to interview me. Where are you going to stay? You better stay at my house. Can't have you driving all the way back," because it was 8-hour drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was so kind and hospitable and let me stay with him, and you get to know him and get to have one of his strong, great porridges as well. Remarkable human being, as you know,
Mm.
but suffered tremendously and was gaslit awfully. It's unbelievable, really. You know the whole story there. So yeah, I also knew a lady called Vicky Spit, whose husband was killed by the AstraZeneca injection,
Mm-hmm.
and I interviewed her, and then I knew her, so we got her in the film as well because we still needed someone to represent this injection because it's one of the most
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
disturbing sort of periods in our history, I think.
Oh, without a doubt. And
Yeah.
you mentioned about the fact that you've got these esteemed kind of
Mm.
individuals, and
Mm.
I remember in the early part of 2020,
Mm.
and a number of us were jumping against the narrative. I remember me being one, and I was getting ridiculed left, right, and centre on Facebook. But I remember some of the comments I was receiving was, Bill Gates, well, he's a philanthropist, isn't
Mm.
he?
Yeah.
And then but what people generally don't recognize is they use those titles and the charitable ways. It's almost, not only do they use it as to hide or
Mm.
to create a mask, but they're actually doing it in a karmic way as well, because energy, they're playing a very dark game, and I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of these people know what they're doing. I
Mm.
think there's some dark stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
you agree? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think some may not, and they may just be caught up in it, like the gatekeepers. Some gatekeepers are just caught up in it. Your everyday head teacher is a gatekeeper and has just embraced it completely brainwashed. But then there are some people who play, I think, some kind of satanic game. They know about the rituals, the spells, the choice of words.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm sure there's people who definitely are heavily engaged in it, and then there's others who are just blindly sort of trapped without realizing the depths of their crimes. Some may even believe that they're doing something for the greater good. They're so warped that they can't realize that what they're doing is absolutely appalling.
No, I agree 100% with what you're saying there. I would imagine the majority probably are either brainwashed
Mm.
in some shape or form and feel that they're doing the right thing, or um, I don't believe that all, certainly all, are fully involved in the occult by
No.
any stretch, but I would imagine some of the top and a lot of the guys that we don't see or hear
Yeah.
about will be.
Yeah, that's right.
involved in that, in the hidden hand, if you like. They'll certainly be playing a part. With that period, so if we can, leading up to 2020, were you already aware of the fact that we're used and manipulated, if you like, in such an effect? I mean, I had some kind of awakening, if you like, or a process of awakening in 2012, and then I came across. I became more aware of 9/11 in a different, with a different narrative than I believed originally, if that makes sense. So I started a process of looking at the world very, very differently. So when 2020 hit, I was aware what was going on from the off, really, and I was trying to get my family on my side. That
Yeah, I lost you
yeah.
there briefly. Sorry, Anne. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
there was a bit of an internet move there, I think. But were you aware of things leading into 2020 yourself?
I mean, I always thought there was so much wrong with the 9/11 narrative. So
Hmm.
that really changed so much, I think, in Britain. I know that they used that to then obviously go into Iraq with all these so-called weapons of mass
Yeah,
destruction that were never found. And then the whole, it's like the problem, reaction, solution. So now that we've got the reaction, then we've got the solution is we're going to, security is going to be really high, get your belts off. You're going to have to go through X-ray machines. You're going to be searched. There's going to be profiling. Anyone with a backpack, watch out, beard, whatever. Suddenly there was this, huge shift in how certain people were perceived. And I mean, I can remember in 1993, this is how crazy things were. I mean, the trouble is when you remember how free we were, and this is not that long ago. I mean, my dad will tell me that it was even freer when he was young. But in 93, I was in Chicago O'Hare Airport and I was running really late. So I was rushing to get the flight. And I think I got there about 10 or so minutes before the plane was meant to take off. But those days you took your chances. What have you got to lose? You've got to go for it. And so they'd switched off the X-ray machine. They'd switched off the metal detector. So the
yeah.
bags couldn't be checked. My body couldn't be checked. They still had all of that stuff, but they were very happy to let me go through because if by the time we turn everything on, it will take a couple of minutes to warm up and you'll miss your flight. So you just got to hurry up and get through. And they were really polite to me. So that was me, And I have this name Mohammed in my passport as well, and Mahmood as well, my grandfather's name.
Yeah.
Not that a name that I've really sort of thought much about because it's just named after my grandfather, so it wasn't really my name, but it was there. And but no problems at all, right? You were that free that they trusted you. So, oh, English gentleman, fantastic, yeah, go through, absolutely. They were so polite.
Hmm.
And most of my life growing up, there was a lot more freedom. You could go out, even in school. I remember we used to go out at lunch. There was one school I went to, they had no uniform. It was just, there were no cameras in secondary schools. And I was looking at it now with my son's school and they have knife arches, and this is a very good school in Wimbledon. It's not like a notorious school. It's a decent school in Wimbledon. And he's, you have to go through a knife arch. And you're thinking to yourself, this is all to normalize the control and to make you feel that you're guilty until proven innocent. And I think
Hmm.
all this happened in a day, 24 hours, that my son had to go through the knife arch. They didn't tell me until afterwards. If I'd known, I would have pulled him out of school. A couple of hours later, I came out of Shepherd's Bush Station. This was probably about a month ago now. Just in that proximity of my son getting the knife arch check, and there was facial recognition, they were all
Was
across the biometrics. Yeah, just without asking anyone's permission, they were just hauling up people, and that was pretty shocking. And then I think about within that 24-hour period, we were going to watch. It was my son's birthday as well, so we were going to watch a comedy show in the West End, a small little theatre in the West End, and bag checks. And again, it was all really ostensibly, for security. But the lady wasn't really even looking in the bag. She was just fulfilling her formality, really. She wasn't really looking through the bag. But it's so invasive, isn't it, to start looking
mm,
into people's bag, but people go along with it like they did with all the taking off your shoes and having to go through X-ray scanners and really humiliating things, and getting felt up and all this sort of stuff was something that I was not used to growing up. And suddenly you had all of these things starting to happen, and then everyone was like accepting it because, oh well, it's for our safety. And it's the same kind of thing, isn't it? This whole current COVID narrative was all about stay safe, and everyone always is using that word safe, safe, safe everywhere. It's like everyone's worried about your safety, not worried about your freedom. So yes, the world has dramatically changed. And when I remember those days, I remember thinking in 2001, 2002, when everything started to change, oh my God, like we managed fine before. It's not as if, the world has really, really changed, but they were just making it change with this whole sort of potential false flag, I think. I wasn't fully aware of everything that was going on, but I had my suspicions, I had my doubts. I didn't look into it too deeply, but yeah, I just felt that our freedoms were being encroached all the time, and it just got worse and worse. But I don't think that I wouldn't say that I was sort of very awakened or anything. It has to be honest, 2020, but not even straight away. Again, I knew something was wrong. When it all kicked off, when the lockdown started, I was still seeing my mum. I was still visiting my dad. I was trying to visit some friends. I was trying to invite some people over. So I was still trying to carry on to meet as many people that were willing to meet. A lot of people weren't, but my parents were at least, and then my brother as well. So that part of it I was not accepting. But again, it wasn't for the first couple of weeks, it didn't seem to cause too much trouble because the weather was nice and everyone was very happy to have a couple of days off, couple of weeks off. People liked it. People suddenly remembered that, oh, it's so nice to spend time with my family. And so they played that game very well, you see, and especially the middle class, because they've got a space in their house, they've got a barbecue grill, they've got big bedroom sourdough, got a balconies, gardens. But if you're in a flat and, it's not always very nice. And a lot of people had to work through that, particularly certain working class groups had to work through the whole thing. So there was very little care for them. So there was so much wrong with it, isn't it? There was so much. But I think for me, I turned up at the first protest, or one of the first protests in May 2020 at Hyde Park, and there were about 100 people there. And that shocked me. That truly staggered me. This is after 2 months. Remember, they said 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And I thought, it's now 2 months, 60 days. And I was expecting a lot of people, I was thinking hundreds of thousands will be there. But when I got there were about 100, and there were more police. And I wasn't I remember I couldn't argue I was arguing, but I wasn't effective. I didn't feel effective. I still was confused. I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't fully understanding. I just knew something was wrong. And I was incoherent. I was very incoherent in my arguments. But I think all of that changed when the masks came in on the July the 15th. I think that was the big moment for me, because that was something I was never going to wear. It was just impossible. It reminded me of the Guantanamo Bay prisoners. So again, it took me back to 9/11, and I started connecting those dots, and I thought, no, this is not about health. This is slavery. This is something bizarre. Like, why on earth would you vandalize your face like that? And you can't sort of communicate, suffocating kind of thing. Looks really ridiculous. This is not right,
It's quite ritualistic, Ash. Do you not think it? Because like just before it all happened, you had the George Floyd thing, and he said I can't breathe. He was like a famous quote, I can't breathe, and then you had the mask thing coming in. And then before that, you had a Eurovision Song Contest where Madonna did a ritualistic kind of performance as well, where you had people in masks, gas masks, and they were collapsing and things like that. So
always telling us.
Yeah, for me it was
programming and stuff, isn't it?
But again, dark stuff.
Yeah, 2012 Olympics as well, isn't it? The whole opening ceremony in London.
Absolutely. When you look at it now, it's like with your open eyes and an open heart, you can see there's much more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, my soul just wouldn't allow me. I mean, I knew this because I was really heavily confronted. I went to a Cafe Nero in where I live, not far from where I live. And just a week ago, I'd gone to that cafe before, and the lady there who was working there was quite upset. She didn't really want to wear a mask. And I said, well, if you're afraid, you can get this exemption if you need it. She found that very helpful and thanked me and said she'll use it when she gets on the bus. A week later, I went back there to have a coffee. It was quite a long queue, and obviously everyone was in a mask. I was not wearing a mask. I didn't think it would be too much of a big deal. I thought, okay, I felt a bit uncomfortable because I was the only one not wearing a mask amongst about 20 odd people. It was definitely uncomfortable, but I thought, it's the British way. They're not going to bother, they just carry on and respect my feelings. And I did know already that I saw a government advert actually that said they actually had some people who were disabled, I think, saying, oh, you don't have to show anything. You don't have to show an exemption because it's against, that's discrimination. If you're asking someone, what's your medical issue? Why can't you wear a mask? You can't ask someone about their medical issue. So that's of no one's business. And so this young lady was saying, and you don't have to say anything. You don't have to show anything. And they were clearly saying that you don't have to wear a mask to start with, and you also don't have to show an exemption. It's no one's business, you see. So it didn't fit in with current legislation that established. Yeah. So anyway, so there I was. I thought, okay, I did have. Well, I think I had an exemption thing in my pocket, but I didn't use it. I just sort of would sometimes put my hand in my pocket in the beginning to see if I, just in case, you don't want to, just to get back people off it. I did actually use it on a tube station, on a tube train, because the police came up, and they were just searching for people without they were just checking who had a mask on. That was their only duty, it seems. So that's the only job they had at the time, wasn't it, to police the COVID rules? There was nothing else going on. Apparently all gun crime and knife crime was all forgotten about. All the kids were scared of COVID, so they were hiding, isn't it? So this is the only thing they had to police. And so I remember that was the only time I did take it out, because I thought, all right, I don't want them harassing me. And they walked off. But in this, I decided that I didn't really want to use it, because I then watched that video that said you don't need to say it's no one's business. It's private and a personal matter, whatever my health concerns are about not wearing one. But some gentleman just let rip into me. He just said, what are you doing? Where's your mask? You're killing people, and get your mask on, and don't serve him. And then the lady who a week ago didn't want to wear a mask, she said, yeah, I won't serve him. I won't serve him. You've got to wear a mask. And I was just lost for words. I could not believe what I was hearing. It was like this person was completely brainwashed. It was like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. She was the same lady. She had a different spirit, a different energy.
Interesting.
And got pushed a bit as well. And then the guy, because he wanted me to keep his distance from me, but he pushed me. And then he said, I'm going to call the police. And he pulled out his phone. And I said, good, because you're abusing me. I don't have to wear a mask. And he said, have you got an exemption? Where's your exemption? And then I think I was taking something. I said, that's not real. That's not an exemption. You're lying. You're perfectly fine. And he just didn't give me a chance to do anything. And then I don't know what happened, because the normal thing to do is I was never going to wear a mask. That was out of the question. I just could never do it. But the easiest thing, the old me would have said, all right, just walk out. And I remember feeling like I'm just going to walk out of here, because this is not a good place. This is crazy. But then when he started getting very aggressive, I thought, I'm going to hold my ground here. This is outrageous. This is wrong. I want to be served. I suddenly felt like I was in, that Muhammad Ali thing where he was this gold medalist and they wouldn't serve him because of the color of his skin. Yeah. And suddenly I felt, because I'm not wearing a mask, which I'm perfectly entitled to do, that I'm not going to leave. No, I want my coffee, and I was trembling because it was like something took over me. And I would have walked out. I was happy to walk out, but I couldn't. And I was trembling as if something possessed me. Said, no, I want a coffee. I'm going to have a coffee. I'm perfectly entitled to have a coffee. And I want a croissant as well with that as well. And the lady suddenly said, there's nothing I can do, she suddenly said. And then she served me. I sat down and everything went quiet. And it's as if it was like a twilight zone. It's like, and then suddenly they were back as if I wasn't even there anymore, and everything calmed down. And I sat there and just couple of 2-3 minutes, pulled out my book and was a bit nervous. And then it was like, yeah, like nothing had ever happened. And that changed me forever. I remember taking my brother, and he was quite surprised because, well, we were walking through a shopping mall. And I remember the man said, "You got to walk on this side." And I put in my brother's arms. "No, we're going to go on this side. Thank you very much." And so we walked down the wrong side. And after that, everything, defiance and non-compliance, became so easy for me. And I never thought I'd do all of this sort of stuff. I never thought I had it in me, I'll be honest. And other people said to me, like, "We thought you were just like, you would comply because, you know, you don't want to rock the boat, or you're a diplomatic chap, a kind chap. You don't want to upset anyone, you know."
Yeah,
But
I get you.
this was all wrong. It just did not sit with me. I just couldn't. I didn't have to explain it. I just knew it was wrong. It's easy to explain it, of course, but the fundamental thing is there's nothing to explain. It's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely bonkers, all this stuff, you know, 2 meters. And it got more and more absurd, really. You just saw these people with these masks. It was like some kind of, yeah, it was part of a ritual. This was their uniform, if you like. This was part of the essential part of the cult uniform, you know. And then there was the ablutions, like hand sanitizing. So it was like a ritual of a religion. You know, the religions have this certain ritual that you've got to take your right step first, or you've got to wear this hat, or you've got to do ablutions in this way. And this was all the same. It was all a cult.
Yeah, well, I say it's a cult.
Yeah, and a lot of religions to me are cults as well, because, you know, prescribing people to pray 5 times a day at specific times. I can't imagine any God would be telling people that you got to do this for me, or you got to sacrifice your son, you know, Isaac, at the, you know, for me. I mean, sorry, no, it's not going to happen. No, this is all this sacrifice, this thing for the greater good. So we're all supposed to sacrifice our relationships with our loved ones, like meeting our, you know, not letting our children meet their grandparents. No way, you know, no way on God's green earth is that going to happen. And it really pushed me away from religion as well. I mean, I saw it all, sadly, as the same thing. I believe in God deeply, or the universe, or the greater power. And I think we're all a part of that greater power. We are in ourselves an extension of that power. We are basically God. We're all gods. And to just hand that over to others, you know, to hand over our power to others, to do that is absolutely disempowering, isn't it? And I think it's done for a reason, because the less we know about how to look after our health, how to fix things, how to generate electricity, energy, you know, grow our own food, the more we depend on others to do that. And unfortunately, those resources and those skills are being kept by certain groups of people. And so we depend on them for everything. We're so dependent now on them for everything, particularly the technology as well, that if it all collapsed tomorrow, the currency, you know, the whole digital currency collapsed, we'd have no money unless we stick with cash, you know, or other commodities to deal with exchange and bartering. So we don't have the resources, we don't have the land, we don't have the animals. We're really becoming quite paralyzed in a way, I think, and because we're giving our power away to others.
And I think that's part of the awakening process. What you've just said there is so crucially important, you know. And I think for a lot of people during that period was that awakening of, hold on a minute, we're in a system here that we rely so heavily on, and where health is concerned as well, it was we're not looking after ourselves here. We're relying on a guy in a white coat to prescribe a drug to help us, and not
we
looking
eat
after
terribly,
ourselves.
we drink terribly, we eat terribly, you know, there's so many people you think they're talking about how poor their health is, and in front of you they're drinking a can of Coke, or, you know, something else of that nature. They're getting, you know, they're getting ready meals and they're eating it at midnight. It's you know, don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of that as well. We're very sometimes quite weak and very we don't always have the self-discipline, and I think that comes with a lot of worry and a lot of distraction. And if we're distracted and worried and everything's external and we're afraid, then we sometimes tremble and panic, and we forget about taking care of our health. We forget about what we're actually putting in our body. We don't even know what we're doing anymore. We're quite distracted and we're not focused. And I think that's really been the problem. We're so dependent on other people. We are stimulated externally. They really want us to be stimulated externally by these material goods, like a fast car, a lovely sports car, all sorts of stuff, isn't it? All this sort of gimmicks and yachts and private jets and bling, and people want all this stuff, isn't it? And we've got to do this, and we've got to get a Chanel and Gucci and all of this terrible stuff, and gaming, and we're forgetting about who we really are. There's it's all a distraction, and our inner voice is there talking to us or communicating, and the trees are trying to communicate with us, the insects, the birds, they're definitely communicating. And we're not aware of that. We're in the city, especially where it's so concreted. We're very distracted, and that's why it's so important to get out into nature, and it's so important to spend time on your own. And I find it difficult as well, but it's so vital not to always take people with you, and just because you want to share that experience. It's nice, but you've actually got to go and find out who you are, and you can only do that on your own and having your own experiences, and it's not easy, but I think that is so important. And then you will hear the voices, and then you'll see the insects, and then you will understand what's going on. It's hard to sort of, you can't quite prove it, but you know the feeling, isn't it? You know the feeling. Why is this cat coming into my house, sort of running in and then running out again? Very random. People say, oh, he probably wants to, it's a sign that he wants to live with you. This cat's been coming to my house for about 1.5 years, and it still doesn't want to live with me. It doesn't want my food either, because it's not looking for food. Because I've tried all of that. Once in a while it will have stuff. But there's something energetically that I've had so many incidents because I'm so aware of it all now. You're so aware, and you just feel good. It doesn't matter what anyone says, whether you're weirdo because you think that this tree's talking to you. You feel good, and you feel things start to happen around you, things that really mean a huge amount. And what I've really been tapping into the last couple of weeks really deeply, and this has been the next sort of phase. The early phase was, okay, we were thinking about, what do we do in COVID times? Do we get out of it? There's got to be a place better than here. By that time, I thought, no, we've got to make a bit of a stand here. I'm not going to run away. I can deal with this. I can deal with this. I've dealt with those 20 people. It's okay. It's not as hard as it seems. We're going to give it a go. Let's give it a go. Let's stand up to this, and let's live our lives. And don't get me wrong, every day was traumatizing because you just didn't know what was around the corner, what abuse you're going to get. But we got through it, right? Yeah. And many others got through it, and the numbers built. And then by June, May, April 21, there were 1 million or more people in London. It was fantastic. So that was very reassuring. Then you go to sort of the next phase, like, okay, we don't have to fight for our freedom. It's inherent. Yeah. And then you think it's there. It's no one can take it away. So it's a trick when they say we're taking your freedoms away. It's all a play, isn't it? It's all a spell. And the whole thing about act like you've got it, play your part, right? And that one really hit me. That one, like you were mentioning about the Madonna videos, and some things really click with it. Hold on a minute. This is they're telling us this is all an act, and the coronavirus act, and there's so much other stuff, isn't it, of the choice of words that William Shakespeare, always remember.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anthony Jab was called. They were taking the mickey. They were mocking.
The world is a stage.
Yeah, the stage, or they were telling us all the time. And so when you start to look into it like that, you start to realize, hold on a minute, this is one big play. They want us to play their game. And if we don't play like the Truman, we don't be the Truman in their game, we're okay. We can opt out of this. And then you're kind of in the last couple of weeks, it's this new sort of phase where it's hard to say how it happens, but things start to happen. It just happens. You do things step by step. You don't look to the end goal, which is you want a better life and you have a certain direction suddenly, that I haven't had since I was really young. I haven't had that kind of, and when you're younger, it's easier to do it because you have very little programming. You're still a lot less programmed. In my day anyway, I was running around doing my own thing, so I wasn't really that programmed because I'd just sneak off and do my own thing. I just didn't fit in, so I'd just go off and do my own weird things, and I just like to be on my own with not many friends. Yeah, so it was a bit sometimes sad, but after a while, you just got on with it and enjoyed it. Because I have your own things I like to do, get my
Yeah.
camera and just take lots of photographs of different places and explore what's this city called London. So you just start to things just started to happen. So I am at that phase now where I think I'm not sure about London is not the place anymore, sadly, as much as we've tried to live here now. And there's still some good things about it. Don't get me wrong. There's some really great people, great places, but it's not the place that I want to be anymore.
Okay.
There's too much darkness, and so I'm thinking, it's time to get out of here. And so you don't know how. The trouble is, you don't see how you can sometimes get out of it because you've got so much stuff. So the first thing I thought to do, with the help of my brother, who said, look, maybe try and get rid of some of your stuff, because half the problem is you've got all this stuff and you don't know what to do with it. Well, why don't you start to look at it and see if there's anything you can chuck? And believe me, by the end of it, I chucked so much stuff. My house is now, you can see the bookshelves. There's no books in there now. I had a lot of crap books I was never going to read. Like you said, this is the old me, right? So that's not me anymore.
Yeah.
I don't read that rubbish. So I don't chuck it away. So suddenly I've got less clutter, and suddenly the possibility starts to open up that, hold on a minute, there is a way out. Yeah, but everyone tells you, no, you're mad, or don't, no, you don't want to do that. You'll never be able to come back here if you sell up and go. I mean, what if you need to come back? This is your home, and even your own family tell your own dad's like, oh no, that's ridiculous. Oh, what are you doing? You're crazy. You can't sell. I mean, you'll never be able to buy again. Is London's the place to be for property? Oh, it's all this stuff. And you think, no, there's so much more to the world than that. And it's just about yeah, it just starts to happen. You just take little steps. You don't look to the very far goal because it seems almost impossible. But you take little steps. You think, hold on a minute. You don't have to be a millionaire to live this life. It's life of freedom. This life of being in nature, in beauty, and amongst good people. There are still places where there is some structure, but there is some what's the word? There is still some chaos. There's still like places where you're not going to be watched, and you're not going to have cameras watching you, and it's not digital. You can still pay on the bus with a coin, not an Oyster card or some phone. And there's still places where kids swim or they fish, or they saw them going up with their dad, taking them into the woods on the hunt, or they've got some harpoon and they're going for a swim with dad, and thinking, wow, this is amazing. Or a girl's driving for 17 and she's driving a speedboat under the supervision of her dad, and she says, I've been driving speedboats since I was 12. And my son's looking at her, and I'm looking at my son, I'm saying, isn't this better than sitting in your home driving a bus simulator in your room? You could be driving a speedboat. And she was telling him, like, I'll show you how to do it. And so he had a small sort of touch of it and a bit of a drive. It's all possible, and no one cares. In here, it's like, oh, that's health and safety. Oh, you can't do that. Oh my God, I'm not going to be. My God, she was brilliant. She was driving brilliantly. She was wise under the supervision of her dad. What a life, right? What a way to grow up. A 12-year-old a girl drive. And there's all these sort of stereotypes about these places. Oh, women's rights. I mean, my God, this woman's got all the rights in the world. She's driving a speedboat. It's so cool. Yeah. So this sort of stuff, you start to realize that it is possible, but it's all about the thoughts. And I think it's like this, you see, it's like the captain of the ship. You're the captain of the ship, the outside part of you, the brain part, the mind. You're like the captain of a ship. And so that's the conscious part of the mind. Then there's the subconscious mind, which is like the team, the rest of the captain's team, all the sailors, and they're below in the engine room. He's at the bridge, the captain, or she's at the bridge, and you've got the engine room, and you're telling the engine room, the subconscious, we're going this way, so just get on with it. You don't need to know where we're going, just do as you're told. So you put out that energy, you put out these thoughts, and you get so consumed in it, and you start, let's just go for it. It's scary at first.
Yeah.
It's what if that, but then suddenly you start going in that direction, and the universe is ahead of you because it's already starts setting the ball rolling. Oh no, did I ask for this? And it's happening, and you're like tugging along at the back, like it's like a kite flying off, and you sort of hold it onto it.
When you have that intention, Ash, it's great, isn't it? And then, but like you say, your subconscious will start bringing up stories. So you'll have stories coming in, negative stories saying, "Oh no, don't do that, don't do that." But you've literally just got to. Everything's going to be all right, guys.
right, yeah,
We're
yeah,
going on an adventure now.
yeah.
This
Captain's got
what
to
happened
say that.
before is different. Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're going on an adventure now,
It's,
and
look for it. You look for this adventure and it finds you. You go out there and
yeah,
you look for this adventure. If you stayed in safe hiding in your home, hiding from COVID, oh, it's going to come and get me at 10 p.m. I better sit in my chair and I can take my mask off while I'm sitting, but I better not when I'm standing and all this nonsense. Then you can't live, you can't live life like that, isn't it? It was the most, for me, the most daftest thing. Look, when you know this is, and I know you know this, and when your children are ill, whatever age, especially obviously when they're babies and children, you hold them tightly, and they got the worst colds and the worst flus and vomits
that's
and
right.
everything, and they do it. You don't put them in a separate isolation room. You hold
That's
them
right.
tightly. You much more closer to them in that period, and they snots all over you, and you don't really get sick. To be honest, I don't
No,
really
you
get.
don't.
No, it might, once in a while, but there's no evidence to say that everyone in the household is going to be catching something because it's just not true. This
Well,
is our
no.
lived experience tells us this.
Back in the day, you'd have a GP that would see 20, 30 people a day that could have all sorts of illnesses. And is that GP, he or she, going to be ill
Yeah.
every day?
Yes, they wouldn't be able to do their job then, would they? But they still
No,
did their job, didn't they?
absolutely. Yeah,
Good
yeah.
doctors did, and they knew there might be some risk, but they were far more braver. They were far more caring. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's very caring people out there, and some people mean well, but unfortunately, they get caught in a system of, as you say, indoctrination and inversion. And you can do some pretty. We know that people can do some pretty weird things. I mean, or pretty awful things. I mean, we're all probably guilty of that, where we behaved really irrationally, and you thought, why on earth did I do that? Or
Hmm.
we all make mistakes, and none of us are perfect. So I sort of don't want to be. I'm trying not to judge people anymore because everyone's on their own path and their own
Absolutely.
journey, and I don't know their experiences and their life, and so I can't just write them off in one go. And oh, you're this or you're that. And I think it's so important now. I said the last 2 weeks is the first time that I've hardly ever been much on the social media.
Hmm.
And I've always saying we shouldn't be on it so much. And it took me a long time to get off it. And the 2 weeks, probably the best 2 weeks of not being on it. And I had no clue what was going on because my mind was so engulfed with all the things and I realized that if you focus on the things that you want for your life, without, as I said, violating the rights of others, which you're not really, and you want good things for your family, for your friends, for humanity, you actually end up helping people far more because you put out such a good energy, a good
Yeah.
vibe, and people want to engage with you, and you meet really nice people, and you're such a high vibration that you just seem to. I've had no issue with any sort of darkness over the last 2 weeks. It's just been like miraculous in many ways, but there's miracles happening all the time if you care to look, isn't it? You start to see things, and people could say, "Oh, well, that's just a coincidence, or that's just the bird flying by, and it's just doing that, making a noise." But it looked like when the bird flew by, it sort of looked like it was actually saying, "Good morning, sir." Just really felt like it was giving me a nice good morning. You're just more engaged with all this stuff.
Well,
Like
there's
I said,
magic in this world, Ash.
yeah,
There's magic in this world,
no
and
doubt about
we're all magicians and we're all creators, all
it.
of
Yeah,
us. And I
yeah,
think that when they put us in a
okay.
state of fear and they put us in a low vibration, then we're
Mm.
creating
Yes,
well a much difficult path, more difficult
yes,
path than
yeah.
what we can. So if we're able to
Mm.
raise, and I believe this, if we can raise our vibration,
Yes.
and what you're doing there, so you switch off, and you've not seen what's been going on these past couple of weeks, and that's a blessing, believe me, because the past 2 weeks have been ridiculous,
I can
and
imagine.
yeah, so you're able to raise vibration for yourself, but you're spreading the love to others,
Yeah,
and you're making others feel better,
yeah,
and then that can snowball.
yeah,
That's a much better world if we work on ourselves. I did a little walk and talk. I
mm,
released it at the beginning of this week about what's been going on this past couple of weeks, and I
mm,
was basically saying at the end, look, we've just got to work better on ourselves,
yeah, yeah,
work better on ourselves, and then we
absolutely.
improve,
Yes,
and others will hopefully be inspired by the fact that
yes,
you're doing better.
yeah,
Um, and these hidden hand guys, these puppeteers and whatever, if we've raised our vibration enough,
Yeah.
they can't control you.
No chance. No, it's like trying to herd cats, isn't it? We all actually are very individually different, aren't we? But we're
Yeah,
also one, but we're also very different because we're
definitely.
having different experiences, and they can't control us if they're just trying to do it all the time, because they've got a lot of control over the media, they've got a lot of control over the institutions, and they're sort of forcing people to be, kids to sit down in a classroom, which is so unnatural. I mean, kids sitting down 6, 7 hours a day made it worse when they made them wear the masks, for all that period of time. Yeah, kids got it pretty badly, really badly,
They
really
did.
abused, really abused. Everyone was abused, really. But I mean, to do
Mm,
it to kids, it's horrendous because they're just starting out in their lives and the damage they've done. I mean, it's so brutal, isn't it? But
mm,
we just got to keep raising that vibration. We got to be positive, and for everybody, for everyone. I mean, there's so many good people around. I mean, how can I knock anyone that they want to help you? There's a guy, we're on different divides. Maybe, he's quite in favor of. He said some, I suppose he said some horrendous things about, if you're going to go in the if you're going to work in the hospital, we should definitely be forced to get the jab, or you shouldn't work in a hospital. Okay, he said that, and we totally disagree on that. I think it's really an evil idea, but it doesn't mean that we give up on each other. He's
no.
still very helpful. And my car was in a bit of a state because I didn't recognize the lamp. I was not much of a driver. I didn't recognize the lamp lights. It was indicating that I had no oil in my car. He straight away took me to his house and said, "You've got to put some oil in there now. Come to my house." Gave me his whole tank of oil. They're not very cheap. Filled it up and set me on my way. And I'll be forever grateful that there's a good man there
Yeah.
underneath. And I remember when because his brother passed away. And in the height of COVID, he forgot all about his fear of his aversity to sort of getting close to anyone. And he just fell in my arms and said, "I need a hug." And all of this COVID nonsense sort of went out of the window, and humanity comes through sometimes, and it was really nice to see that. The next day he was back to his 2 meters distance. But and
Oh
that's
no.
the funny thing, isn't it? That one day you hear someone saying, "Oh, I've got this mask is giving me a migraine," and so right, okay, so they take it off, and the next day they're wearing it like religiously, like the day before never happened. And there's so much brainwashing going on,
Yeah.
day to day, that people are in and out, and it's just about getting into this low vibrational trans kind of state, isn't it?
Mm.
Like in a trance. I mean, yeah,
It is. It is.
yeah,
Yeah. It's deep programming, though, isn't it? And we are very much born into trauma, and then you're thrown into indoctrination camps, and your parents generally are already indoctrinated, so
yeah.
it's not their fault,
Oh no,
and then you're just going through that process, and then you're told that you must get a job and a 9 to 5, and then you're thrown into these systems,
mm,
and it's hard to break out of those systems, and then when you do start to put your foot out of those systems, then there's fear there because it's an unknown. So
exactly. You're
it's
quite
a
right.
challenge. There's a soul test going on, I
Yeah,
think. 2020, I felt there was a big soul test.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Something was happening in there. I don't know. Something was happening in the universe, or because they seem to really drop a sort of shock on the planet, and it felt like a lot of people got shook by it and came out of
mm,
their snapped out of whatever life they were living and thought, hold on a minute, this is not right. It really
mm,
shook people, a significant number of people, like I've never seen before.
yeah,
Um, it was remarkable. I mean, it's hard to put it into perspective from anyone else's perspective, but I know from my perspective, it was life changing. I mean, I know I'm not you know it as well. We spoke, we're not the same people that we were before. We
no.
really are not. And it's such a blessing, and to be able to suddenly see everything so differently. It's like magic. Yeah, this is magic. It really is magic, because you feel so protected, like you feel like superhuman, you know?
It's weird, isn't it? There's like a mission going on. I think individuals felt they're on some kind of mission, but I think there's an opportunity though. As they keep throwing more at us, I feel there's an opportunity for a real positive change because there's a window that will open there
Yes.
if enough people recognize what's going on and enough people um, join together in that unity that's required. I mean, these past 2 weeks, and I don't want to talk too much about the past 2 weeks, but there's been a lack of unity.
Yeah,
That's the thing. They're using a divide and
they,
rule
they
tactic
always
as they
have.
always have. Yeah, as they
Yeah,
always have, and it's worked a treat. And they're using various tactics. Agent provocateurs are at
mm.
play. They're using the race card. They're using the Christian Muslim thing again. They're
They've done it
using
many
everything,
times. Yeah, we
everything.
should know this from history that they do this all the time, isn't it? It's nothing
Absolutely,
new. Yeah,
it's nothing new.
yeah. I mean,
It
I don't
works
know.
well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's been, as I haven't seen it, and I'm trying not to notice it, but coming through. I mean, I felt nothing. I didn't feel anything coming through. I didn't feel any kind of
Good,
tension. People were, yeah, just I thought, wow, this is
good.
fine. Everything's
You
great.
keep your vibration high. That's the
Yeah,
key.
yeah. And most people are fine. I still think most people are not. Everyone's still doing their own thing. A lot of people are doing their own thing, and they've got lives to lead. And most people are fine. I think they're going to be okay. And I think they're pushing and pushing, but I don't think these things. This is not one of those things that's going to work. I really don't think that this is one of those things that's going to work. I think it's one of those things that they keep dropping, just to cause a little bit of a rift and a little bit of a. I think they're going to try possibly something a little bit more crazy at some point.
I
Uh,
think so.
yeah, I don't know what that is. Who knows? But I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay because we'll see through it really. So there's
I
nothing.
believe in the human spirit, Ash.
Yes,
I do believe in that, and
yeah,
I've said this for a few, since 2020 as well. Even though most people bought the narrative, and most people, sadly, were taken astray by that.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
do believe that there is a very powerful human spirit there that there'll be a point where enough's enough.
Enough's enough. Yeah, and a lot of people know it. They might not be able to express it to us publicly, but so many people that in private, quietly through someone else, you'll hear that's enough. Like there's no more. They're not going to have any more of it, and they kind of realized somewhere along the line that no, that's it. This is it. This was a bit of a sham or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a case of where some people, and a lot of people has proven again for the past 2 weeks, is they rise against, and
Yeah.
it's not about rising against; it's about rising above. It's
Oh
a,
yeah,
it's about
great.
it's about getting above all that. We're
You hit
better.
the
We're
head.
better than that.
Yes, it's not
That's the
about
thing.
fighting. Fighting is feeding into the energy. They want us to fight because it
Yeah,
drains us.
yeah,
What they
exactly.
don't want us to do is rise above it. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's what we got to do.
And I do believe in my journey over the past 12 years or so, I've recognized very much that vibration and frequencies play a massive part in our being and who we are and how the world works.
Yeah,
If we collectively can rise above,
yeah,
it's game over for them, because at the end of the day, they want to feed off our negative
yeah,
energy.
yeah. For us, it's game over already, isn't it? For those, I believe that for people who have transcended that, I think it's game over. We just obviously got to be careful and not be
Hmm.
complacent and suddenly drop down
Yeah.
into something.
Yeah.
We're not perfect and we can drop down, to some levels. But overall, I think for us, I think we're in a very special place. The universe is blessing us, and you can see all the messengers and all the good angels and all the good things and energies around us that's happening. I think they can't get to us. It's that kind of thing where you got I remember the bully, and the bully would pick on the weak. But there was always one character that the bully never quite liked, but the bully would always nod and respect and know that this is not one of those people that I could. And there was some kind of respect. And sometimes I think some of these dark forces, because they're so cowardly, they only pick on the weak. And you only
Yeah.
become weak when you're in fear state, when you're that low vibration, and when you get caught up in their manifestations. You start to manifest their stories. You see, you start to
That's right.
play into it, you repeat it, you use their words, you talk about these names, and you talk about what's going on, and then you're in that frequency. And I'm just saying, okay, I'm just going to try to you can't avoid it all the time. I went to the neighbor today, and because the parcel came to my house, I had to go to the neighbor to give the parcel. And then he's straight away talking about, oh, there's this, but they're not going to get us. There's lots more of us over here. And I thought, oh, okay, all right. So, he's in that energy, and you don't, oh, okay, no, all right. So you sort of just avoid as much as you can. And then generally you're out of it, you're out of it. And I think it is very important sometimes to just to go somewhere else for a different perspective, or wherever it is, just out of this town where you're familiar with, into somewhere where you're not, just to get everything into perspective, isn't it? Because it's all about perspective and experiencing something different, and then you come back very, very, very different, very changed. I mean, I would say yesterday I was different to today, the day before was so different. Every day is like a new experience, and there's so much downloads coming, like blessings of wonderful feelings that you think, oh, okay, yes, this is great, and yeah, and you're meeting amazing people that are just going out of their way. I mean, I remember we were running quite a bit late, and we got to I had all sorts of worries. I thought, have I damaged this guy? Because I rented a car out there of a friend. He wasn't really a friend, but he saw me as a friend because it's the second time I rented a car from him, and he wouldn't take any deposit. He said, I'm not taking deposit, you're cool. And then I sort of felt like I scratched his car. I thought, have I done something to his car? I wasn't sure. So that was a worry for about 2 weeks. When I get back, he's going to say, oh no, you scratched my car, you've got to pay me this. But anyway, we got there a bit late, and the ferry was about 2 a.m. and he was holding up the whole ferry, and the captain of the ferry, because it was a car ferry, but we were going to be the passengers. He was on that side, so he didn't want to cross the ferry. We were going to go across the ferry, and the whole ferry was holding up the ferry just for us, because the next one wouldn't have been another hour. And I thought, isn't it just wonderful how this blessed man, and he didn't even, I actually hired the car for an extra day, but he didn't even charge me for the extra day. So he was a true friend, and there was actually no problem with the car. He just sent so many blessings. And I'm really sorry that we couldn't hug and talk and have a nice rakia, was one of their local Balkan drinks.
Nice.
But you would have missed your ferry. And everyone was sort of like, really, oh yeah, come on. But then when we got on, clapped as well that we made it. And it was, these things, everything just seems to happen. You think, you pay attention, you think it's all working out, it's all going to be okay. You just got to keep positive, and it's going to be good for the people around you, because your energy carries them. You see, sometimes there can be people that you're carrying that are a bit of a baggage, but you can drive them along with you. They will come along with you, because they just know this energy is just, it can be quite phenomenal. And I say the most important thing is, it's not about me, it's just to be grateful. I'm so grateful that I have this energy that's coming from the universe, that I can have this impact through whatever's out there, and I'm really grateful for all these meetings. It's wonderful people everywhere, and you just keep meeting these wonderful, and animals and experiences, and meeting yourself. And the timing of this, that you got in touch with me, just literally got back the other day. The timing is phenomenal, so I'm blessed that we were meant to meet earlier, but I'm actually far more blessed that today was, like you said, it was meant to happen. Nothing's random.
No, nothing's random. There is no coincidences. Divine time in everything.
Yes.
Can I ask though? Even though we know that there is this high vibe is important, and keeping that high vibration is important, and we are blessed, and we know we're guided, and we know we're looked after, and we've got all that going on. But we spoke off camera that when you have this as well, your tests can come.
Yeah.
Negative tests can come as well, to try and derail you, to distract you, to bring your vibration down.
Yeah.
And I've got some, I mean, at the moment I'm working on a project in Liverpool, city centre at the moment, and we're me and he's a friend of mine now, but he's originally was a colleague, and we're building a wellness centre in Liverpool, and it's going to be very high vibe, but he's getting tested, really tested.
May I ask in what sort of sense, the sort of things that you feel that he's getting tested? Or
well, I mean, it's just there's certain attacks coming, and certain people that are getting in the way from the progress, slowing it down. There's certain
Yeah.
things that are coming in, and
Yeah.
it's like, and it's like it's spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's slowing down what is we know is going to be a wonderful,
Mm,
safe place for people to build on their personal journey and to
absolutely.
grow and to grow. So we
Yeah.
know we're attracting also these
Yeah.
negative energies that are trying to slow the
No doubt.
progress down.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
so have you ever felt anything like that yourself, Ash?
Yeah, because we're in the system, right? So wherever you're going, there's you have to always go back and engage with the system, or you got to get some money out from an ATM, and it's so
Hmm.
complicated, isn't it? Because they're charging you an arm and a leg, or
Yeah,
you're only allowed to take this amount of cash, but there's not many other ways that you can move money around. You're only allowed to take 400 quid out of a limit, isn't it, of how much you can take out in cash from an ATM on a given
yeah,
day. There's all sorts of stuff. I was talking about nationwide. I think they want to take out they want to stop the passbook, I think, and a lot of older people, pensioners and stuff, use the passbook. They're not so familiar with alternative ways. My dad's one of them. So, there's all sorts of attacks. We're going on our journey. I've probably got to mention at the moment. I mean, there's so many things. We were all okay. And then my mum, during the whole madness of this COVID, my mum was arrested. So that felt like an attack, that there's a test there, because they're not getting me, but they're getting to someone that I dearly love.
hmm,
And that really affects you, doesn't it? Because it just
yeah,
stops everything that you're doing. And then recently my mum had her money, but nationwide basically she had £9,000 of a 12,000 pension taken out by someone who had got access to her card that they had sent,
wow,
that she had ordered, and they blamed her. They said, well, it's not our fault because it's your pin, and the pin must have got into someone's hands. So we've gone
wow,
through the ombudsman because they refuse to cover that cost, and they blame her. It's horrendous. And the worst thing is, she never uses an ATM. She's never used an ATM before. So the ombudsman actually wrote in his report, bless him, he did a really good report. He said, number one, you should have picked up straight away, because they did about 30 transactions
yeah,
before, nearly 30 transactions, about 20 odd actually, over a month before they said, oh, there's some fraudulent activity. So we're going to, over all of this time, they let it go, and she never uses the ATM. So that should have been a red flag straight away. And they've just been so horrible. There's so many other things that have come about as a result of it. You think the amount of hassle, and it takes up a lot of our time, because we've got to help my mum, and we're worried for her. She's worried. She's in a depressed state. That was all her life savings, and how much time you have to put into this. You keep going to the bank, you go, then they say go to the police. The police say, oh yes, it's absolutely awful, we'll try and do everything, but of course they have no power to touch the banks. The corporations are untouchable, isn't it? And so it's a long drawn out process. And then you say, well, what about the CCTV? It's been your ATMs, and they won't look at it. And then when they
hmm,
finally say, okay, well, we might look at it, oh, it's time limited, so you can't. So whenever there's any, you see, they always talk about these cameras, isn't it? They're everywhere. It's for our safety, but they're never there to protect us. When that poor fellow Jean Charles Demenines was shot point blank about 8 or 9 times on
that's right.
Stockwell Station. All the cameras mysteriously were out of order, right? They got about,
Conveniently,
yeah. And when it's you, like I said, there's the ATMs. Okay, I'm not saying that they'll pick up the face, but it's worth a try, right? You can look at it. It's happened time and again. These cameras never there to protect you. They're never used to see who took your money or whatever. It's never there for you. And I think the same in Sainsbury's. You've got all these supermarkets, they've got all these cameras staring at you, right? And the things to protect, to stop shoplifters. And of course they don't prosecute anyone who takes anything over anything under 250 quid. So they're not there for stopping crime. They're there to gather all the information about you. And it's all
hmm,
about data and
it is.
surveillance and gathering every bit of DNA. Ultimately, now they can just arrest you, and without charge can swab you for DNA. They stick things up your noses and get your DNA through the PCR test, probably. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm a teacher, as you know, and I was asked, because they got this horrible software at school now called that we use, called class charts. and they keep telling me to I don't log because it's just ridiculous. I mean, mostly you don't think of it anyway because you're so busy. You don't have time to keep going on the computer and logging a child who's gone to the toilet, right? So I've got to log if a child goes to the toilet, which I never do. So I'm always in trouble with that. They never can do anything about it. They just sort of say, "Oh, you didn't log anyone to go to the toilet." Oh yeah. So you just, oh yeah. They just sort of tell you. They email you most of the time. They're so cowardly. They don't really want to confront me. They just sort of email you. You didn't log, and I never will. But because it's just ridiculous, right? Someone's going, and so they call it an intelligence event.
All
So if
right.
someone goes to the medical room or wants to go to the toilet, the software calls it an intelligence event, and it's no. These softwares are basically part of things like Microsoft and all. So they're all part of the same agenda, isn't it? And it's horrendous that the kids are being really like being put in a straitjacket. They got to wear
They're,
lanyards around their necks with color
they're
code.
normalizing it, Ash, aren't they?
They are,
They're normalizing them being tagged,
yeah, absolutely
getting them
gagged and
prepared for that. Yeah.
lots of these. There's so many other jabs they have to go through, and they're getting it's normalized, so they think it's part of the it's part of their. Oh, I remember that last year. Oh yeah, so it's we did. We had the HPV jab invite for the boys now, you see,
I believe
and
so. Yeah.
and it said that they don't need to get permission from their parents. I mean, this kind of stuff, right? As if a young child is going to know enough. I mean, an adult doesn't know enough. The doctors don't know enough. The doctors turned out not to know anything. I interviewed a doctor who said, I said, why did you do this? Why did you go along with this whole thing? He said, because the regulator said it was safe. And I haven't got time. If I started to look up all the regulators' information, I wouldn't be able to treat one patient. That's not my job.
Blind faith in
Yeah,
systems yet again.
yeah, yeah. Which and they don't. I think they don't leave the time for these people. They're so inundated, these GPs and doctors, and they're
Yeah,
so
yeah.
busy and stressed.
They
Of
are, yeah.
course, they're exhausted, so they've got no time to sit there and start to of course you have to have I can understand that people have a degree of trust or at some point in their lives we have a degree of trust in the police, right? At some point we turn to the police when there's a crime. You think they're
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We grow up with that belief. So, and I'm sure probably a lot of these doctors grow up with that belief that these regulators are going to be doing, they've been told they do 10 years of tests and trials, and they were some of them were quite horrified. And to their credit, some of them said, I'm not going along with this program. I'm not going to do the second one, or I'm not going to do the booster. So at least they but I think we still put these people on a pedestal. We're still turning to many of the doctors and professors who, by the way, went along with this narrative. Yes, some of them even promoted it. Some of them even promoted these things. They even
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that kids need to take it.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm very grateful to them for admitting their mistake and the error of their ways. But I'm sorry, if they went along with this up to a certain degree where they took two of them themselves and promoted it, it's very difficult for me to put them on a pedestal. I will never put them on a pedestal.
No.
I'm
No.
sorry, I can't. And how can anyone? And we're still doing it. We're still putting people on pedestals all the time. I don't understand. I mean, this is another brainwashing. This is another programming indoctrination that has gone on. That we'll go. I'm not going to sort of name any names, but there's so many of them, right? Maybe they're not agent provocateurs. I don't know, but you just can't put them on this pedestal. You see, and these are the most brainwashed people, I'd say, because they've been through that system for the
Yeah,
longest.
definitely.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
all of them. I'm sure there's people who've seen through it, and that does happen. But a lot of them they've been the most, or the attempt has been the heaviest because they've been in there for the longest period of time. Some of these doctors, 7, 8, 10 years it takes to train them, isn't it? So yeah, and the whole experience tells us that these are the people, not all of them, but they're not the people that you should put your faith in. You can talk to them, you can listen to them, but you really need to look within, because your body's the greatest doctor, isn't it? When you cut yourself, your body knows how to heal. It creates this
That's right.
scab, and I always say, when the woman is pregnant, she doesn't have a book of what to do. I've got to create this, and it just happens. The body prepares
Yeah.
itself. And I think sometimes we really misunderstand health. You know, when someone gets sunburnt, they think, oh, it's because the sun's really bad and I better hide. But what they don't realize is because you've not been exposed to the sun. You're not used to it. It's like when you've
That's right.
intoxicated your body with really bad stuff, you know, and then you suddenly drink a lovely detox ginger drink, right, with lemon. You feel really sick. And then you think, oh, this lemon's awful, this ginger's disgusting. It's not the lemon, it's just your body's just not used to it. And then when you get used to it, you know, I used to get burnt, believe it or not, I used to get burnt badly. But I've been trying to spend more time weathering. So during the winter months as well, I've been sitting in the sun as well and exposing myself to it as much as possible. And then I found, and my son said it this year, and he was badly burnt last year to the point where a friend of mine in Portugal was really having a go at me. He goes, what on earth are you doing to your son? I mean, he's burnt badly. This is awful. And I was really in a very difficult position there. And then this year, absolutely fine, you know, and it's just because he wasn't exposed, he was hiding and he wasn't used to it. Yeah. And this time he was out there. He said, oh, you're right. Look, I'm not burnt. He was really proud. And I said, of course, it's all right. We'll be okay. But you have to go through these trials because we're so indoctrinated. We're so, definitely, you know, we don't have these experiences and we put this cream and then we don't realize that the sunscreen is the thing of causing the cancer often, you know. It's crazy.
It's the programming we endure is always to look outside for someone to help us, rather than taking responsibility. For
these are the super people.
Ourselves.
Yeah, we are the super people.
Yeah. The more I go down this on this journey, the more I totally believe that. You know, there's so much more to us as human beings and as individuals. I think I've been saying this for a little while, actually. You know, they're so. Whoever's doing all this, whoever's running the show, the hidden hand, whatever you want to call it, we must be pretty special as a species for them to want to keep us in a low vibration, for you know, and keep us so controlled and keep us looking outward all the time rather than inward.
Quite right.
You know, the kingdom.
I don't know. It's a shame why they want to do that. I mean, sadly there is. Maybe it's because, you know, that we can only know what is good and we can only know the light if we have the darkness, because then we can compare it. If we only had the good, I suppose we wouldn't know what good is because we don't know the bad.
You won't see the stars without the dark.
Exactly. That's beautifully put. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and the light at the end of the tunnel in the dark.
Yeah. Quite mean, we do need that, and I think the journey is about learning, isn't it, and becoming better. Me personally, I just think I've just got to get better all the time.
Yeah, and take it like a film. I think you watch a film, 2 hours. It feels really real. If it's a really good film, it can tug away at all your emotions. You got your two senses there, but then you walk out 2 hours later and it's all over. And then okay, and whatever happens, I mean, this life that we're living is like a film, but with more senses. And I think we're just here to experience it, and then we're gone, isn't it? In this form, we're not gone for, you know, we're still here. We're just gone from this body, from this experience. So we're just here to learn, I think.
I think
and
so.
I'm not even certain about all this karma stuff. I'm not positive about it. I don't know. I'm even sort of sometimes thinking, I don't know if it still feels like some kind of cultish idea that, all right, now you've had this bad life, back you come, banished to the terrible zone to suffer all over again. It's no, I don't buy that. I don't know. I still feel that that's also a little bit of a.
I think this world, Ash, is all about frequencies and vibrations. So if you feel shit, you live in hell. So you can live in hell right on this planet if you want to. If you really, or you can live in heaven.
Yeah, heaven's here, isn't it? Yeah, if you want it.
If you want it. I mean, obviously the tests come and it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But if you're able to pick yourself up, I'm learning more each day about the fact that I need to look after myself more.
Yes,
and that's my body as well, because I've not looked after myself. My mind and my body, I've not looked after myself at all. You know, so, and with that, my
doesn't show at all. It doesn't show at all, I must say. You look amazing.
Yeah, it's all inside. You never know what's going on in there.
I see. But what you're expressing is wonderful. It really is. You're a beautiful soul.
And you are, but I think this is where I'm at with, and I might be wrong, but I just feel that I can get better. I can improve my. If I know when I had a breakdown, Ash, when I lost my pub in
Sure.
end of 2022, 23, like, because we stood up against the nonsense and we
Yes,
stayed
yes, and I
open and all
admire
that.
you. I know you that you told me about
So
that. But totally admire.
I felt quite poorly, but what I recognized was there were certain things I needed to do to improve my body because my nervous system was shot. I was exhausted and my nervous system was shot. So I started grounding more, started earthing more. I started eating different foods. I got in nature more. I started doing a bit of shadow work as well. I went within quite a lot, and the baggage I was carrying, I learned how to forgive. I learned how to send love to that as well,
Yes,
and I healed
yes,
because when I had the breakdown, the first thing you do is you phone a doctor. I did it because I needed a sick note because I had a job at the time. I needed a sick note, so you got to phone the doctor. I weren't well enough to go in, and the first thing they're going to do is, well, you need to take this pill. And I remember saying to the doctor, well, I'm not going to take that pill. I'm not interested in that pill. This is my problem, and I'm going to sort it out because this
yeah,
is my problem.
it's
You know,
great. Yeah, yeah. Not handing your problem over to someone else, but to say, I'm going to find a way to deal
you
with
have
it.
you have to work at it.
Yeah,
And this is, I don't get me wrong. I still hit some points of difficulty in my being, but
yeah,
I've learned a lot through facing that challenge on my own. If that makes sense.
yeah. No, absolutely. And like the tests come as well, isn't it? You're right. I mean, and they come in different forms. It may not be that they come directly, but they may use conduits. They may use other people who come into your path. And
Agent Smiths.
yeah, yeah. You said earlier, that's right. They pop by from time to time. That's true. But I don't know. Maybe it's yeah. I find it okay up to now. I mean, touch wood. I find it okay. I can sort of deal with it. I can see it. I can see right through it. I think I was with my brother earlier today, and we was both laughing and chuckling at one of those Agent Smiths that sort of popped up. We both looked to each other. You can sort of spot them very easily now. So radars and detectors are quite good, isn't it? So long may it continue. But you never take anything for granted. But I think the most important thing is just really being grateful and just
Mm,
realizing how blessed we are. As horrible a time as it's been, it's also been the most phenomenal time, and that's why you always think, oh, this is the dark times are coming, and these no, it's the light times as well for many of us. Met some amazing people like yourself, and I mean, I never thought I did. I said I've interviewed a lot of amazing people. I never thought I'd encounter these people who would want to tell me some of the most traumatic stories. Literally crimes against humanity. I never thought
yeah.
that those stories would come to me. I kind of always wanted to do something. I never imagined it would be, that traumatic. But I always wanted to find people who'd been through some experiences, I suppose, that are really just beyond belief, I suppose, and it just all happened. And then also I got to meet, I mean, some amazing people. I suppose meeting Mike Stock. I mean, it was really strange because he was one of the first cassettes albums I bought was his Hit Factory, and
Oh
I was
wow.
embarrassing, but I did like a bit of Rick Astley at the time.
Stock Aitken and Waterman.
Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was so bizarre to sort of come across him on Twitter, and we were following each other. I saw him liking some of my posts, and I thought, all right, I've got to interview this guy, because then I saw him interviewed. I think it was Dellingpole, and I asked him, and he was really so up for it, and like it's almost like he was expecting it to. It was like he was expecting it to
Oh
happen, and he
wow.
just said, "Yeah, come here," and it was like just phenomenal that I was meeting this guy that as a kid I loved his productions, and he really was this independent thinking person who just really valued independence,
That's
and it was
fantastic.
yeah. And then I met and another person I admired as a kid was Peter Ebdon. I always remember him, the snooker world
Yeah, he was great
champion.
through that period, wasn't
He
he?
was actually really a really good player for a period of
Oh, he
time,
was. Yeah.
phenomenal. And he wasn't necessarily the. I mean, he was one of the top players. I think he sometimes seems to put himself not in that category, but I think he was really a phenomenal player. But there was that
Yeah.
year where he he was so determined, and he called it the laser beam focus, and he even swam. He said he was swimming every day, like for miles, to prepare for this big match that he won in 2002. And he was just the loveliest of people. And he talked.
Yeah.
I wanted to interview him because he was interviewed on. I was feeling quite down, like many of us, I suppose. You talked about your breakdown. I was feeling really depressed because I didn't know where this was all ending, and it was just going on and on, isn't it? And it was quite scary because you thought, what's next? And are they going to round us up? These weren't 100%. You can't always pretend.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a way out. Sometimes you were quite worried. And Peter was on the radio. I can't remember who interviewed him. I can't remember his name. Was it someone O'Brien? I can't remember. But anyway, he was interviewed.
James O'Brien.
Might have been him. An Irish chap based in Manchester.
Okay.
Jackie knows him very well, actually. She was interviewed by him a lot. But anyway, his name slipped my mind. But I just caught up with that show. And Peter was so positive. He kept talking about a light at the light, and stand in the light. And through this, we're going to come through this, and this great light that's going to fall upon us. And he was so uplifting and so positive. And that it was just, I just had to sort of find
Richard Allen, it is.
Richie Allen, that's the man. That's the man. Yeah, they get on quite well. And Peter was just defiant, and Peter was just phenomenal. And interviewing him was just out of this world. We became really, really. He actually came, I think, to Playing God. Not on the day you were there. He came on another day, all the way from like yourself, really far away.
Fabulous.
He didn't even have. He couldn't even stay to watch the because we were doing a double bill. We were doing my brother's film as well, which is because of their own religion. He couldn't even stay to watch that, but he came all the way just to watch Playing God for an hour, and then go all the way back up. And I thought it took him about, like yourself, it took you so long to get. So the support and the he actually did a healing session with me, actually.
Did he? Yeah.
And I never thought that Peter, his hands would be on my head like that, and he would be,
wow,
it was marvelous.
Fabulous.
So it really was. It really was fabulous, and he was so positive, and sharing this energy with him, it was remarkable.
And you interviewed Danny Rampling as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Danny was fantastic. It's just remarkable that all these people were willing to sort of say, come round to my house. You'd never met these people before, but they're just like you and I, just human beings at the end of the day.
Of course.
Although obviously the fame hasn't got to them, they've got all this fame, but they've just remained down to earth, true to who they are. And it's so easy when you're in that fame bubble to get corrupted, I think. And we know a lot of these people have far more easily become more corrupted. But it's really a breath of fresh air to find people like that so willing to speak out. And I think they're important voices because they're quite well known, and they cross over into the mainstream.
That's
Peter,
right.
See I think he was celebrating the anniversary of his World Championship, so he's back on the BBC, and so he's a high profile guy. Same with Mike Stock, and so it is important also to have a sort of mixture of people, I suppose. And
there's been a few good voices, hasn't there, during that period?
Yeah.
Matt Letizia was a very good voice, wasn't he? And he still is.
He's a great guy.
I believe so. And he's took some stick.
He has.
Yeah, he's took some stick, but he's standing strong, which is good. And Ian Brown is a big hero of mine. Ian Brown from Stone Roses, and he's been phenomenal throughout. And he's took a lot of stick as well.
Yeah. Always has, hasn't he? He always has taken a lot of stick.
He always has, yeah. But he's a strong character, though, isn't he? He's very, very strong.
Very strong.
I admire that. I admire that strength. Yeah. I went watching him a couple of years ago, actually, and he didn't even have a band. He just sang and on stage on his own, and just like for 2 hours, and that takes courage, not to have people around you. I admire him a lot.
I admire him. Yeah, I sort of I don't know why I was drawn to him. I didn't know too much about. I'll be frank. I didn't know too much about. I heard of the Stone Roses, but I didn't know if Ian Brown was part of them. But I just saw this name and just released from prison, and he's going to be performing in this tent, and it's something. And I thought, yeah, I like the sound of this. Let's go and have a look. Brilliant. I just connected. This was about 1999. And I never thought, and it's all these meetings that happened in all those years ago, all these connections that you had with these people. And then suddenly I remember, because a friend of mine's a session drummer, and I saw a video of Ian in, I think it was the Fuji Rock Festival, and in the background I saw the drummer, and it was that friend of mine. And I
Was
said,
it?
"Hey,
Yeah.
is that you?" He said, "Yeah, that's me. I've done a bit of work with Ian." And then Ian reached out
Wow.
and said, "Yes, respect." And he actually, he had a couple of words because he doesn't,
Amazing.
amazing. So yeah, all these things are just like magic. They really, really reinvigorate you. And you remember, hold on a minute, it wasn't some coincidence that I thought, let me see this Ian Brown. I want to see this guy. This guy sounds interesting. And I just fell in love with him. And then I missed all the Stone Roses stuff, but I really enjoyed his stuff he did with Uncle. And then he did a lot
Yeah.
of, Be There and all of those tracks. The one, I can't remember the title. It's a very famous title, isn't it? Fear.
Fear.
That
Fear.
is a brilliant
It's
track.
amazing. It's a bit of a soundtrack for the period that we're in, for everything a reason, and
Yeah, exactly.
fallen
And
empires are falling and
there
all
you go.
ruling. Fallen empires are ruling. Yeah, and it's in fact, Stellify is actually named after one of Ian Brown's tracks. That's what my inspiration was
Yes, that's
from.
right. It is. It is one of his tracks, isn't it? Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah. So, and then the Freds obviously have been another pair that have stood up well, haven't they, through this
Yeah,
period
they've been
as
brilliant.
well.
Great stuff to see them
But you
stand.
do need these voices because it became quite a lonely battle, couldn't it?
It was
When
at
you
times. You remember
oh yeah,
how
yeah,
many people and I don't know any pubs or any landlord who was standing up. I'll be very honest. There was one or two that definitely tried a bit. I met a shopkeeper that tried quite hard, but in
yeah.
the end, the police came. That was his stand. I mean, he dealt with the council, got rid of them really well. Did a great job. I mean, he was phenomenal. But in the end, the police was a step too far, and I understand, totally understand
Yeah,
and
it's
respect.
scary. The police come
Scary,
to us
isn't it?
quite a couple of times, when the council came a few times,
Yeah, yeah.
and we had infiltrators. There was no doubt about it.
There
You
you
know,
go. It's the problem.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the
without a
public that cause the
shadow.
trouble. Yeah,
Yeah, because we used to have a gathering. We used to call it Truth or Tuesdays, and we used to have a gathering every Tuesday evening. So
yeah.
people would come for miles,
Wow.
and the pub would be rammed. I mean, rammed. So there was no doubt I was getting questioned, but because
Yeah,
strangers were coming all the time,
of
and I
course.
was clearly getting questioned, you can feel it. You can feel the energy.
The
You know
energy.
it's different.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
I think they were looking at me as maybe an agent provocateur myself, but I wasn't. What I was creating was a home for people that had nowhere else to go. So it became a place for those voices really that needed somewhere to go.
Yes, yes.
Um, but it was when I look back, me and my partner look back on it. It was the most amazing time.
Yeah, you are a
Amazing.
true hero. What you did
Well,
there, you
I
gave a
don't know.
space for people to get together. I mean, it takes courage
It
because
was
you've got your
hard.
business on the line. You've got
But
a
like
family.
you were saying before, though, Ash, about the mask, there was no other way of doing it. I sat up one night with my missus was in a wheelchair at the time.
I remember you
She's
telling me.
improved a lot. But I sat up one night with her and I said, look, we're gonna lose everything. We're gonna lose our home. We're gonna
Mhm.
lose everything because I ain't doing this.
No, no, yeah,
And it just your soul will not
not
let you
allow you.
do it.
No, that's right.
You
But
know?
you've got through it. You've got through it, and you're moving in
Yeah.
amazing directions. What you're doing, and the way you are, you're amazing. Really, take my hat off. Yeah,
And to you, and I think one thing about these past few years, as souls have come together,
yeah,
I felt that a lot of people have come together
yeah, yeah.
for a reason, for
My
everything a
brother and me
reason.
have connected again. He's looking after me so well, and he said we're like one, and we're going to do this
Amazing,
together. And and we were not talking really for years,
really, really.
and it's very rare, isn't it? I suppose in a family to find a connection of a soul. Because I said it's not just because you're my brother. I think we're so blessed that two brothers have come together
Yeah,
connected like this, and we need each other, And I was away for these 2 weeks, and he found out I'm back, and he said, "I'm coming down right now to see you. Gonna come today?" I was like, "Yeah, get down here, man."
oh,
And
that's
so,
lovely.
yeah, it's he's
That's
having
lovely.
a nap at the moment, so
Is he? Yeah.
yeah,
I'll have to watch his film at some point because
yeah,
I've heard very good things about it. I've just
yeah.
not had the chance
That
to
was his
catch
way
it.
of expressing himself of what was going on and defying. He defied a lot as well because he was filming. He just started shooting Gods of Their Own Religion in just before in February. I think it was about February 2020. So then he was really the bulk of the filming was going to take place in about April, and obviously he lost some people because of they were playing ill or whatever, or suddenly fell ill because of fear.
Hmm.
or thought they were ill or just got scared. So, and then obviously he was saying, who's out there with me, who's going to carry on filming, because we're going to he got a lot of backlash for that, because certain festivals and certain organizations that had worked with him said, we're not going to work with you, and you can't get insurance if you're going to do this sort of thing like this. You're killing people and you're out in the streets. This is really harmful. But he carried on very bravely, and went out there when the streets were pretty. It was a great time to film, because London was deserted,
quiet. I
mean, those early days were very tough, because like you said, at first I wasn't really on social media in those days very much, so I didn't really know much of what was going on, just only from intuition, and couldn't find anyone. Like I said, I was looking for someone who wasn't wearing a mask. I remember going up to someone on a train. The train carriages were quite useful because you could walk all the way through them. Looking for someone. Is there anyone here that's not got a mask? But there was one person that didn't. I went up close, and then they put the mask on. Oh no! Same at school. I thought there's got to be someone who's not wearing a mask. No, everyone was wearing it. It was like one challenge after, and it was walking in the twilight zone. You just suddenly entered some new sort of. Sorry to say this, but it was kind of like what you imagined some kind of Nazi place to be. Really, the diseased and the non, it was mad. It's
crazy time when you think we lived through that period. I know they're going to throw more at us. They're going to throw more at us, as they have done this past couple of weeks anyway. There's more to come, and we've just got to keep ourselves resolute, haven't we? We just got to keep, like we said before, let's keep that vibration high.
That's it. I know it's not, we're not perfect, of course, and we're going to have days of ups and downs, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's also important. Like you said, you've got to have the light and the dark, to compare and to realize, and everything's going to be okay. It's okay. It's okay to have, isn't it? We can always talk to each other and cheer each other up with a good post or two, or a call.
Well, I think this is where community is important. We've got to have that, because there are difficult periods, and you do still need people to lean on.
Oh yes, you're right. Very well said. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ash, I want to thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. We'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. We'll be in a different place probably, and have a lot more different things to talk about.
Oh yeah, there'll be a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. I'm really glad we finally got together.
Me too. I'll look forward to meeting up with you again soon as well.
Yes, very soon. Maybe I'll come up to Preston someday.
You're always welcome.
I'd love to, yeah.
Always
just
welcome.
You.
Always welcome.
To your family and everybody.
And you, Ash, thank you so much.
Pleasure, man. The pleasure's mine, brother. But take care of yourself.